Right. It is time to kick on with the discussion proper on this week's show. And we're beginning with a look back at the weekend that was. And we'll be starting back by looking at Sandown's action, where we had a brilliant winner of the Grade 1 Tingle Creek in Edwardstone. But of course, that wasn't the whole story of the race. So AP, back to you, please, for this one, for your assessment of the Tingle Creek.
Yeah, I think we should talk about Edwardstone first and foremostly, because he was a very good winner of the Tingle Creek. He did nothing but impress. He jumped pretty good on the whole. He put up a pretty impressive performance. You know, he was a little disappointing on his last run when we saw him again the last season at the entry, but came back as good, if not better than ever, winning the Tingle Creek. And you know, if you're Alan King or Tom Cannon, you'd been very impressed with what you saw. You know, we can easily pick holes, and was great as Grenadine. You know, how good a benchmark is he? Did Shishkin not really perform? You know, he looked like a horse that was struggling from a very early stage. He made a few mistakes. You know, as you know, is the Shishkin that we saw that beat Energumene in Ascot last year. You know, is that the best we're going to see him? You know, we'll have to see if Nicky Henderson can get him back to that kind of a level. But you know, I think you have to give the credit to Edwardstone. He went out and done his job, and couldn't have been more impressive doing it. He's going to have much tougher opposition to take on. It may not be in Kempton at Christmas in the Desert Orchid. It may not happen until he takes on Energumene and Fernie Hollow and whatever else Willie Mullins has to offer in Cheltenham. But it's a long way away, and I think they can enjoy their Tingle Creek success, and they have every right to be dreaming of you know, the Champion Chase in March.
Yeah, exactly. That's it, isn't it? And James, I think that AP makes a very fair point there, where for all that we've had all the discussion behind Edwardstone, then in the Tingle Creek, of course, as AP said, sort of Grenadine, what's his benchmark? How disappointing was Shishkin, relatively so? But are we not giving enough credit to Edwardstone? He feels like a horse where we haven't fully given him credit throughout his entire career. Would that be fair to say?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think that's the thing. When the race was built up, and I was really looking forward to the Tingle Creek this week. It was probably the biggest race of the season so far, and I was really looking forward to, just because we've seen horses avoid each other already this season, but everyone sort of took each other on, didn't they? So that's what it was good to see. And if you would have said to me an Arkle winner be 11-2 to go off for that race, you'd have said that's stupid, wouldn't you? Because you've got to respect an Arkle winner, and he doesn't get the respect he deserves, does he, at all? But what a brilliant performance that was. Like you say, Grenadine, well, he'd be ready for his life, wouldn't he? Nichols will get him absolutely ready for his life. So you can say what bar does that set compared to probably some of the Irish horses like your Energumenes, but it can only be what's in front of you, and Edwardstone was absolutely brilliant. It would have been nice to see Shishkin back, wouldn't it? It would have been nice to see back. But for me, it's almost like Energumene, when in that race at Ascot, they bottomed each other out, but Energumene has come out obviously the better horse. Since then, Shishkin hasn't been the same. He obviously had his bone condition. And I was reading as well after the race some of the notes, and if you look at the start of the race, Shishkin was getting checked on by the vets, and it said that he got kicked into. I don't know if that had anything to do with what's going on. He was obviously deemed fit to race, but like AP said, he was off the bridle earlier than most horses in that race, and he just didn't have the same like charisma as the horse he used to be, did he? So, but yeah, Edwardstone brilliant, doesn't get enough credit, and in the Champion Chase market, he's gone from 10-1 into 3-1. So second favourite now behind Energumene. But like you say, how good he is compared to Energumene, we'll have to wait and see, won't we?
Yeah, exactly. Like I say, for when we see those two match up. But again, both of the lads are giving notable credit to Edwardstone for what he was able to do. Now, near enough an hour earlier, though, we had a race over the same course and distance, of course, in the Henry VIII Novices Chase, won by Jonbon in a whole league of his own. So, James, I'm going to go back to you, please, for your turn to take this race up first. Would you agree with that, and your observations, please, of the novices?
Well, obviously, a bit sad to only see 4 runners go to post, but when you've got a horse like Jonbon, you're going to try and avoid it at all costs, because he is an absolute superstar, isn't he? He is an absolute superstar. Like when you watch him over hurdles, he was only beat by Constitution Hill. Obviously, what a monster Constitution Hill is. But he was a brilliant hurdler. But they always said, I think AP will know more than me, but Henderson was always saying that to go over fences would be a much improved horse. And the twice we've seen him now, he's been electric, hasn't he? Absolutely brilliant. Like Monmorale's no slouch in his opening run over fences. And then Booth Hill sets a good standard, probably not grade 1 standard, but a good handicap in his own right, rated in 140. So, and he put him to the sword. The jumping was excellent. And he's 6-4 now for the Arkle, isn't he? And I think it's going to take something really, really special. So and I think it's probably going to be an Irish horse, like an El Fabiolo or Appreciated maybe, but it's got to be seriously special to beat Jonbon, because I think it's his Arkle to lose at the moment. I know it's early to say that, but the two performances have been absolutely brilliant, haven't they?
Yeah, like you say, 6-4 then for the Arkle. You can't really, even from an Irish perspective, I'm not entirely sure what's going to come out and beat him. Now, of course, AP, you know this horse better than most. Can you tell us just a little bit more sort of about that? Was that, of course, being a 2-11 shot, it has to have been expected as such, but were you even impressed by what a display he put up at Sandown?
Was I impressed? I was no more impressed than I thought I was going to be. I would have been very disappointed if he wasn't able to do what he did. You know, a lot of people say, oh, when they're hurdlers and they go chasing, they'll be a better chaser than that. The only thing I would say about Jonbon, I watched him jump hurdles in the entry when he won there, and I just he's a very bright horse. He's very quick with his feet, and I did always think that he'd be a better chaser, and he has shown that. What he has as a novice chaser is the asset if you're trying to follow a horse like Jonbon, who is in front of you all the time, who stays pretty well, and he's making ground at every fence, even when he's a little tight. He kind of bends his knees, and if you watch him, his head kind of stays the same height. So he's quite straight back, which a lot of people would think that is not a good thing for a novice chaser. But he's so fast from A to B, and when you're following a horse that's like that, you can't afford to make a mistake behind him, because you're thinking he's gonna be gone on me all the time. So you're always under pressure to chase him. The jumping is a huge asset. I wouldn't be surprised in time if he's a better horse going to trip. But it'll take a good horse to beat him in the Arkle, because I think what you saw on Saturday was a pretty good performance. I think if you were to say to Aidan Coleman that this horse has to win and this is the last race of his life, he'd have went much faster. I don't think Boot Hill would have got within a fence of him, because I think what really impressed me was from the back of the last, or just before the last, he gave him a couple of little flicks, and the acceleration that he showed from the last to the winning post in Sandown, he was only getting going. So when he gets taken on by a horse going faster, I think it'll be an even greater asset as Jonbon. So Phil Dore was impressive winning in Navan. He beat San Roy, who's a pretty smart horse. We haven't seen Dysart, Daniel Moser, Gerard Appreciate It, all those horse willies. I'll be surprised if one of them is a better jumper than Jonbon.
Oh, I love that. That is the click that, just clip that one line out there, and we'll be happy to roll with that for the rest of the season, I think, to be honest with you. But I love what you said about, from a physical point of view, of a straight back on him, and the fact he does keep his head so level. He doesn't look as though he's going to nod or knuckle on landing, hence why he's so fast away from his fences. So from a physical perspective, that is a really fascinating insight, though, and obviously from the person who is going to know him as best as anyone else.